in Covington, Louisiana. She was working in a junior food store. She was the night manager. Every night, she closed up shop for just a couple of hours to restock the shelves. During that time, she went missing. The next day, the day manager finds that Jerry is gone, and so is the cash register and the safe. The police found Jerry the very next day. She had been killed. Jerry Colbert Monus, she was born September 11th, 1934. She died on January 8th, the birthday of Elvis Presley, 1991. Now, let me pull up the details here. So it happened, this was a report from the Associated Press. They were the first people to report on this crime. They said that the police feared someone had kidnapped a Covington woman. Dorothy Walker, she was the day manager for the store. She came in about 5 o'clock the next morning. It was a Monday morning. So whatever happened to Jerry happened Sunday night. They actually think that it was probably about 2 in the morning. So 2 that Monday morning. Monday morning, Dorothy comes in and she finds that Jerry Monus's pickup truck is parked outside. Her purse is inside. Jerry had apparently put her lunch into this electric oven and it was still there. I'm not sure if it automatically cut off or if it was still on and burnt. I don't know the details there, but the cash register was gone and so was the store safe. So immediately Dorothy, she calls the police and says, hey, I think we were robbed and something has happened to Jerry. She never suspected Jerry as being involved. Some of the locals did, as you know, people will always talk. So at the time, that next day, all throughout the day, people are talking, trying to figure out, hey, was Jerry involved? What happened to her? What happened? What went down? And blah, blah, blah. And then they got the bad news. This is from UPI, United Press International. And they said police found the body of convenience store clerk kidnapped during a robbery. Her body was found in the Bogashita River Tuesday afternoon. This according to a spokesman from the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. Deputies found Jerry's body in nearby Washington Parish. This is near the community of Enon, about 20 miles northeast of Folsom. It says near the junction of Louisiana Highway 25 and Highway 40. The Associated Press added to that the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office, because technically it was in Washington Parish. It was right across the parish line. They got a call on Tuesday from hunters. January 8th, 1991, they got a call from hunters who found a bloody bone on the southern bank of the river. And this according to Sheriff's Department official Larry Sicko of Washington Parish. He said that their deputies had been searching the woods and near where this bone was found, and they eventually found Jerry's blue jeans and her underwear. And people in her family were able to identify those pieces, those articles of clothing as belonging to her. Now, the reason I mentioned the hunting part, because when I originally wrote about this in the Hammond Daily Star, people reached out to me and said, hey, hunting. What the heck were they hunting in January? And I checked on this. It was officially still squirrel season. So they could have been hunting squirrels. So don't jump to any conclusions about the guys that found the bodies. And by the way, it was also duck season and coot season. Now, I don't know what a coot is. I thought I knew what a coot was, but I didn't know there was a hunting season on them. So somebody in the comments might want to tell me a little bit more about coot season in South Louisiana. But anyway, that's the bad news. These hunters found Jerry's body. They called Washington Parish, went to the scene when they got the call, and then they called St. Tammany Parish, the sheriff's deputies over there, who then sent out St. Tammany Search and Rescue. And these folks, they found Jerry's body about 200 yards downstream. This happened at about 10:52 Wednesday morning. So they found the clothing on Tuesday. They found the bone fragment on Tuesday. Remember, she disappeared, we think, about 2 o'clock Monday morning. And then Wednesday, just before lunch, they actually found her body. The body was stuck on a log in the river, so it seems that they had just thrown her off a bridge. Jerry was partly nude. All she had on was a sweater, and it was bunched up around her neck, around her throat. So this led people to wonder if she was, in addition to being robbed, if she might have been raped. Before tossing Jerry off a bridge, her slayer covered her mouth and eyes with gray duct tape. So this is kind of interesting to me. That says to me that maybe they robbed the store wearing a mask, and at some point they still didn't want Jerry to know who they were, so they covered her eyes maybe, and that insinuates that maybe they had not initially planned to kill Jerry. So that, I don't know, just again, some speculation. The their monsters that did this used a small rope. They tied her hands and her ankles together behind her back. And then they shot her in the head. Now, the initial reports said she was shot in the head with a rifle. Later, the sheriff's office clarified that it had been a shotgun to the back of her skull. The bone found by the hunters, this fragment, was caused by the shotgun blast. The St. Tammany, a coroner in St. Tammany Parish, conducted an autopsy that happened the following weekend. They were trying to determine both the time of death and whether or not Jerry had been raped, but they never reached any conclusions regarding that. That week, the Junior Food Mart Corporation on Monday, the day she disappeared, Junior Food Mart offered a $5,000 reward for information. When the body was found, they upped the reward to $10,000. And then when no arrest had been made the following year, they upped the reward to $15,000. Junior Food Mart was determined to help Crime Stoppers find who killed Jerry Monus. They weren't so much worried about who robbed the store. We don't even know what was in the safe for the cash register. They primarily were concerned about Jerry and wanted to make a statement to make sure that people knew this wasn't going to happen again. But unfortunately, these people were never caught, or at least not officially. Detectives did not know if the robbers forced their way into the store or if Jerry opened the door and let them in. A rear door appeared broken, and police believed the store was normally closed as Jerry would restock between 2 and 4 a.m. So they think that she usually locked the door during that time, closed the store down, and maybe that's when somebody kicked in the back door. They may not have even realized anybody was in the store at that time. Police suspected the robbery occurred between those hours of 2 and 4. Unfortunately, would-be store patrons saw a dozen pickups and vans at the store overnight. So there was a lot of calls about vehicles that had come in, but none was definitive. So we really don't know what kind of vehicle Jerry may have left in. The thieves, we do know, drug a 400-pound safe, and that's why I say thieves. Most of these original news reports said thief, but 400 pounds is a pretty big safe. I'm thinking there's at least 2 men involved in this. They estimate it was more than $8,000, and they took the safe out the back door. They could not open it. That tells me, again, that Jerry was not involved. Investigators from both St. Tammany and Washington Parish initially believed that 3 men stole the safe. Later, FBI found tire tracks of a dolly that was used to move the iron box. So, so maybe not 3 men because they didn't carry it that far, but they still had to carry it far enough to get it onto this dolly. I guess it still could have been one big guy, but I'm skeptical. 1 week after Jerry's disappearance, St. Tammany Parish Coroner Ted Brushowitz said an autopsy showed a high-powered rifle, not a shotgun. Okay, so it's the opposite of what I said earlier. Created the wound in the back of Jerry's head. He said his office could not determine anything else. They didn't know for sure when she died or whether or not she had been raped. Larry Ciko, forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong. It's Ciko. He told the television crew, "We have some possible suspects from other cases. We don't know if Miss Monus knew her abductors or if they killed her because they thought she had seen them or knew something about them. They may have been regular customers at the store. At this time," Larry said, "we just don't know." He said authorities believe someone kidnapped Jerry, planning to force her to open the safe, and then killed her so she would not identify them. St. Tammany Parish Sheriff Patrick Canulet said the safe robbery involving convenience stores in the parish was one of about 12 that had happened in the 3 weeks prior to that. So he thinks it was a whole ring of folks going on. And that reminds me very quickly, as I'm saying this, I have to say this, of the KK robberies. You remember around that same time of KK's, that store over in southwest Louisiana, very similar robbery. They took the safe in that, I believe. Anyway, he said there had been about 100 similar convenience stores robberies in South Louisiana, even many in the New Orleans area. Still, the Folsom case was first in Louisiana history involving both kidnapping and murder that we know of. Whoever did this, the sheriff said, is a brutal group of individuals. This is a horrible crime. This is the most brutal and heinous murder I've seen in 11 years as sheriff and my 20 years total in law enforcement. 2 weeks later, investigators hoping for a break in the case began intensive questioning of Jerry's family members, focusing primarily on her husband. St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's detectives and FBI agents questioned John Monus multiple times. The sheriff told reporters that investigators interviewed the husband, who was an employee at ITT Hartford Insurance Company in New Orleans, in hopes that he could give them something that might suggest who is responsible for the crime. The sheriff declined to say if investigators considered John Monus a suspect. He said, we are pursuing a lot of information. We have received several telephone calls from people with potential leads. We are following them all in hopes that they will eventually lead somewhere, Sheriff Canulet said. We're talking intensively to not just the husband, but also other family members. The FBI is trying to develop a profile of potential suspects, and we are assisting all we can. Again, that happened in 1991. Several years later, 1998, January 1998. So truly 7 years later, Sheriff Canulet left office. He was replaced by Jack Strain. Jack Strain, when he was running for office, made a big deal about the Jerry Monus case, said he was going to solve it. And when he went into office in January of 98, he charged Wayne Fussell, 42, a guy from Franklinton, with Jerry's murder. Fussell had gone to prison in 1992, so the year after Jerry was killed, for the rape of a woman in a meet. However, according to the grand jury that set him free, the sheriff's office offered no evidence to suggest that he killed Jerry Monus. There really was no tie to that murder at all. So about 2 weeks later, that guy walked free. And today, no one has been charged beyond that with the murder of Jerry Monus. As you hear about these crimes, pass them on. Tell other people.